Everyone to be quiet though while I do this, okay? So the first thing you have to do is set up Adobe Illustrator for the laser cutter. So there's a couple important things you need to do when you're setting it up. You need to set up a custom file. You need to make sure you set up the dimensions of your Illustrator file so they're the size of an A2 piece of paper. So that's 594 millimeters wide and 420 millimeters high. And you also want to make sure that color mode is set to RGB. It should be set to red, green, blue, but you just want to double check because those are the colors that work on the computer and that the laser will use to determine when it cuts and how deeply it cuts. Okay, so once you set that up, you can then go to Fusion. Now, what I would suggest you do is, if you've got everything nicely organized and labeled like Byman does, then it's really easy to just go and turn off all your components. And so then you can just do this one component at a time. Okay, so this is our first. So this looks like it's the same shape, so I don't need to export this twice. I just need to export it once. To export it, all I need to do is hover over it so it's selected, right-click, and with a little bit of luck, I will get this option to create a sketch. So I want to create a sketch of that shape, and then all I do is I click Finish Sketch, and over here in your Sketches panel, you'll have a new sketch down here. If I turn this off, there's my new sketch right there. And so all I need to do is, so what I would suggest you do is you rename this right away. So I could call this top panel for export. And so you need to do that to each shape you want to export, okay? Once it's ready for export, you right-click on the sketch and you go Save as DXF. DXF stands for Document Exchange Format. It will export that as a vector file with all the information the laser needs to cut out that shape. And you'll need to give it a name and you will export it. Okay, so then once you've exported your shapes, you need to import them into Adobe Illustrator. So what I suggest doing is, there's a couple of ways you could do this. In Adobe Illustrator, you can place different objects into an existing workspace. But what I've discovered is you're better off to just open up that file that you've exported. So I'm going to go and open that up. And the reason is when you go and open it in its own window, you get a dialog box which allows you to confirm the scale. So by default, a lot of times these programs like to scale whatever you import to fit the space. So I'm just going to click on original size and click OK. And so now it's imported it in the original size. Okay. So all you have to do now is select that, copy it, and then go over here to your A2 shape and paste it in. At least that's what's supposed to happen. Let's try this again. Copy, paste. And you can see here, it looks smaller on here than on this one because now you can see it in relation to the shape you're cutting out of. You're going to want to move that. To move it, you click on the second arrow down here, and you need to make sure you click right on, oh, I've got a copy option set up. So click right on the edge here, and you can move it, right? Now, Byman's going to want 2 of these, so I can just go Control-C, Control-V, and make a second one like that. Now, the last thing you need to do is you need to make sure you change the colors, okay? So what we want with a shape like this, we want to make sure that the laser cutter cuts around the inside shapes first, and then cuts around the outside shapes. That way, when it cuts the inside shapes, the outside is not moving at all, so it's more accurate. So we want to make the outside shape green and the inside shape red. But what we have to do is make sure that it's not just like kind of green and kind of red. It has to be 100% red or 100% green. So what we're going to do is go over here to the swatches. If you can't find swatches, you've got to go here under Window and toggle swatches on. Okay? And then when you're in swatches, you click on the 3 lines in the top right-hand corner here, and you go New Swatch. And then it gives you the red, green, blue options. So for a red swatch, we're just going to drag the red up here so it's 255. It's at its max value. And that's going to be our red swatch. For our green swatch, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to drag green all the way up. So now I've got my colors. So now all I have to do is select my outside shapes. A good rule of thumb is if you hold down the Shift key, you can select more than one thing. So I can select my 2 outside shapes. I need to make sure that I've clicked on the ring here, so that indicates I'm changing the color of the outside of the shape. And now I'm just going to go find my, let's see if we can drag this down. Click on green, and I've made that green. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my inside shapes. Hold down Shift, select all of, whoops, I accidentally got that shape there. And I'm going to make those red. Last step, when you send this to Conjute, you can just email it to him. But you need to email it as a PDF. So you just go Save As. You're not exporting, you're just going Save As, save on your computer. And then you need to change the file type to Adobe PDF. Make sure you give it a he's dealing with all your files, so make his life easier. Use the proper naming convention, right? So I can put Phil, grade 10, and organizer. And if you want to make his life really much easier, tell him what material you want to use, right? So if it's going to be plywood, put ply in there. If you are making your, and then you go Save PDF. If you're making your model or your desk organizer out of 2 different materials, you need to do 2 different Adobe Illustrator files, 1 for each material, because what he's going to do is he's going to put the material in the laser, he's going to run this, and it'll cut all your shapes out of that material. So don't mix and match. Make sure you have a different file for each material. Okay? So I think that's everything. Let me just stop recording.